spin rates continued to plummet this weekend for 3 different aces. Plus, let's hit the waiver wire next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Monday, June 14th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White. And for these 3 pitchers in particular, Shane Bieber, Trevor Bauer, and Corbin Burnes, all 3 of them had rough starts this weekend, and their spin rates were down quite a bit. Scott, what do we make of Bieber, Bauer, and Burnes?
Well, it's not good. It's not a good thing to see their spin rate down, and we know why it's down because MLB has said it's going to crack down on the use of sticky substances. We've been talking about this, obviously. But, Bieber's kind of a new one. The RPM on his curveball was down nearly 300 after being down nearly 200 in his last start. So, this wasn't the first start we saw. The results were bad. He had his worst start in 2 years, and he was, going against the Mariners. So Bauer was going against the Rangers, and Burnes turned in his worst start with the RPM down on his cutter. And he was going against, who was he going against? The Pirates, right?
The Pirates, yep.
Yeah, 3 of the best pitchers in baseball had maybe their worst starts of the season against 3 of the worst offenses in baseball. And it's, hard to think it was a coincidence that their spin rates were down so much. We're talking a sample of 1 in each of their cases, so I don't want to overreact, but I do think it's certainly worth monitoring, and we're going to continue to point it out going forward.
Yep, a huge story in baseball and for fantasy baseball as well, and we will continue to follow it with the league's best starting pitchers, and he's not there yet, but maybe one day he will be. Logan Gilbert has looked really good now. 2 starts in a row, and the Mariners prospect got off to a bit of a slow start here, but against the Cleveland Indians on Sunday, actually opposing Shane Bieber, 6 2/3, 1 earned, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He had 19 swinging strikes on 92 pitches, Scott. This is now 2 very solid starts in a row. He's 56% rostered. Is Logan Gilbert a must-add starting pitcher?
I think he's pretty close. 20 swinging strikes last time, 19 this time. He's been mixing in the changeup more after being mostly fastball slider early on. Still not throwing a lot of changes. He got changeups. He got all the way to throwing 8 in this most recent start, but 4 of them got swinging strikes. So it seems like having that extra look really maybe rounding out his arsenal, helping him meet at the full extent of his potential. We know how much upside Logan Gilbert has, and I think maybe he's rounding into form here.
These are the most added hitters from this weekend, Scott. You point out 2 or 3 of your favorites from this list. Patrick Wisdom, Miguel Andujar, Eric Haas, Justin Upton, Jonathan Scope, Jonathan India, Ahmed Rosario, Ryan Mountcastle, and Max Stassi. Who are 2 or 3 of your favorite of the most added hitters this weekend?
So Justin Upton is probably my favorite. He's still available in like a third of CBS sports leagues. He's hit safely in 9 of 10, batting .371 with 4 home runs during that stretch, up to 14 home runs this season with a good walk rate too. And, he was great last September. He was great this spring. He had some injury problems the past couple years. His xSlug, though, according to StatCast, is the highest it's been since, but I believe it was 2017 when he hit 35 homers with an OPS over 900. So we were probably too quick to write off Justin Upton here. I think he's worth adding wherever he's still available. I also like Max Stassi a lot, the catcher who appeared to break out last year. It was only 31 games that he played, and he was injured so much early this year. Who knows what to make of it, but he's been on fire since coming back from the IL. My third favorite is probably Jonathan India, who you look at his numbers since mid-May, and he's living up to what we hoped he would become in spring training, getting on base at over a 400 clip with some power and some speed, batting leadoff for the Reds again. I think Jonathan India is really coming through.
Yeah, and he's been leading off for the Cincinnati Reds, and it's really good lineup context there, obviously, with Jesse Winker and Nick Castellanos batting behind him. So lots of runs scored to be had there for Jonathan India. We'll wrap up with some news from the weekend. Jacob deGrom left Friday's start with flexor tendonitis in his right elbow, and he checked out fine after playing catch and is in line to start this week, but This is a pretty scary situation after he dealt with an oblique injury earlier in the season. Mike Trout is expected to have a clear return timeline soon once he resumes jogging in the coming days. Steven Strasburg is scheduled to meet with a specialist about his nerve irritation. Max Muncy was placed on the IL, and Shohei Ohtani now has outfield eligibility on CBS. He has made 5 appearances there, and he is a bona fide top 10 outfielder in our rankings. He is actually bordering on a top 5 outfielder the rest of season. Scott, would you start him as a pitcher or as a hitter this upcoming week?
Hitter. I would keep starting him as a hitter till further notice.
Yep, hard to argue with that. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.